s- giving our voices and criticism here in the spoiler room. Hello, everyone. You're running just a little late, but we are here. We are live. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and having a beverage with us as we talk movie spoilers. Yes, folks, it is a new month, and we're killing two birds with one death wish, in that we are wrapping up our look at the Death Wish franchise. Even though the other Chuck month is over, we were still able to do Death Wish 5 tonight because it's I Need a Hero month. And you know, who better to be a hero than our favorite vigilante, Mr. Kersey, the crack shot architect. Uh,
or is it Mr. Stewart?
Or is it Mr. Stewart? Or is it Mr. Kimball? I'm not sure. He's a man of many names and a man of many talents is with us tonight. It is my right-hand man, co-host and friend. Yes, it is Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I can't wait to talk to you about this because I love this movie, but I still think last week is the reigning champion as far as this series. So I'm waiting to get into you about it. Help me figure this out.
Well, I can't wait as well. Mr. Glenn Bittner, the BFD, could not be with us again tonight to close out our Death Wish series. He was with us for the first three. You are here with us in spirit, sir. We raise a glass to you, Biff, and look forward to when you come back again. I brought wine tonight because blood, red. Well, it's purple, actually.
I thought it was going to be your death swish.
It's my death swish. No, I'm not going to swish into the mic. That's just rude. Anyway, Death Wish 5. Although, when they title it, it's just Death Wish Face of Death, which, just a side note, I always like sequels better when they don't put numbers. I think sequels actually will be more successful if you don't put a number on it, because otherwise people will realize just how many of that film may have come out by now. And so if you don't put the number, you just put the subtitle, like in this case, Death Wish, The Face of Death, which is the way it's credited in a lot of places. That's like, oh, it's a Death Wish film. You're not quite sure which one, kind of like James Bond. If you said James Bond 35, you're like, oh my God, they made 35 of those fucking movies. Oh my God. Okay, so that's my side note about sequels and subtitles. I think you should not have the number in front of them. That's all I'm saying. Or in the title at all. But I digress. Mr. Ian Simmons, as always, sir, if you could give us the synopsis of Death Wish 5, Face of Death.
Paul Kersey, architect Paul Kersey, and former vigilante. Once again, he has retired his old ways. He's living walking the straight and narrow path. He's got a serious girlfriend. What are those conversations like? Like, what's date number 3? So tell me about your exes. Well, my wife was brutally beaten in the same room as my daughter was raped and killed. And let's see, my second girlfriend left me when she found out that I went around killing people. Anyway, he's just got a very interesting dating profile.
He does.
But so he's back in New York, right?
Yeah, New York, yes. Sorry.
It is wintry and snowy, and yes, you're probably right.
Toronto, York.
But he's got this girlfriend who is a fashion magnate. Olivia Regent, I think, is her name.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a daughter from an ex-husband or ex-boyfriend. I don't know. It's kind of unclear. Played by the great Michael Parks. And he's a maniac. He's like this Irish mobster who is very jealous, wants custody of his daughter. And Paul Kersey kind of gets in the way. The mother's business is wrapped up in all sorts of illegal dealings, of which Mr. O'Shea is, I think that's his name.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. He's kind of like masterminding a whole bunch of this shady stuff under the table, business involving garments and overproducing clothes. I didn't quite understand all that stuff. But things go really wrong when one of this guy's hitmen roughs up Olivia in the bathroom of a fancy restaurant, smashes her face repeatedly into a mirror, and disfigures her for life. Eventually, hitmen come after both of them. She's horribly killed, and he just goes off on a rampage with the help of not a cop this time. It's a district attorney. And there is a crooked cop. So we're seeing like each of these movies keeps piling on more best ofs, more of the Death Wish bingo gets integrated into these films as they go on, which is why I love them. I mean, this movie is completely different from the first Death Wish, even though they have a lot of the same fundamental characteristics.
Oh yeah, no, it is a different approach to the character. Of course, we're talking mid-90s now. We're talking 1994. So we're talking 20 years have passed since Mr. Kersey first went ahead randomly killing and baiting crooks to shoot them. He's been at this for a while now. And yeah, it does have a different feel. Of course, they have to take a different approach, though we do have the nudity back in this one, literally within a minute of the film. But
honestly,
but it's not violent nudity. I mean,
no, it's tasteful. And even the violence against the women, or Olivia specifically, as much as it is weird to say this, it's not the bad kind of violence against a woman. It's equally, not equally, but it's almost just as horrific watching her get her face smashed into this mirror, especially because of the kind of artistic presentation. We're seeing her face kind of through the shattered glass, so it's not like lingering on the gore, but it's still very distressing. But it's not a brutal rape scene. The nudity we get it's like Fashion Week models backstage, like dressing and undressing, and you're not even like going up the thigh or the breast and like it's not like Michael Bay. It's very matter of fact, almost like you're watching Project Runway, just models getting changed before they go on the catwalk.
Yeah, you don't have them low angle up the stairs in a negligee shots that Michael Bay gives you in it. So yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it is handled a little more tastefully. It's done in context. I mean, the nudity that you get right in the beginning is fitting for what it was, which was a fashion show and people switching creep, and that's just nature of the beast that you have there. So yeah, but you're right. It hits the Death Wish bingo card hard in this film, quite a bit. Without the rape, though, you don't have the rape, which was a nice refresher. And Kersey's a full blown action hero now. His killings become so intricate. You've got James Bond taking notes. Okay, this guy has really honed his craft over the 20 years he's been a vigilante. And let's not skip over the fact that he's actually in the witness protection program, though. Though they don't go into why, because after the events of 4, he kind of walks off again across the bridge after he blows away the shitty dummy, which is still one of the best deaths in Death Wish franchise. That one. With this one in here probably being a close second. But yeah, he's really honed his craft, but he really does do the creative deaths now in this one. Actually, the first one he did, I thought was interesting because after his girlfriend gets aced because the guys show up because she's going to testify. She gets her face smashed. That's right.
Yeah.
Because what I found interesting is O'Shea, this guy, he's a little... I love Michael Parks. I've always loved Michael Parks. He is in a different movie. He's on a whole nother level with his Tommy O'Shea character. I love this villain. I don't want to, but it's Michael Parks, and just the way he plays this guy, so scummy and over the just Michael Parks way that I can't help but really like this guy's approach. As bad as he is, it's just he's got that charisma. I always loved Michael Parks, So in this one, being that villain, but he doesn't outright really kill people immediately, even if they've wronged him. He knows it's a business. So this isn't, which surprised me about his character, because when you see him, you think, okay, organized crime leader, crime guy. He's got basically, we find out the whole fashion district under his protection scam of if you don't pay the protection, suddenly something bad accidents happen in your fashion shop. But he doesn't just do Kersey in that he just randomly pops people that wrong him. He'll hurt them, but he knows he's got to keep them because otherwise, if he kills them, it cuts a revenue stream.
Yeah, and that's, and he is a big fan of like having his henchmen disfigure people and they get creative with the way they rough people up. Like there's the big fat guy we meet on the production floor, the pill popping thug and the was it the lollipop hood?
Yeah.
They're brothers. They get, I don't know what these tools are, but they get like this stitching saw or something that kind of cut a little piece out of him. And I think they're even surprised by the damage this thing does. But yeah, you get enough people who've been put through that kind of machinery, they're going to spread the word around the underworld. That's why, Kersey is frustrated because he's talking to people about, why can't the cops just put this guy away? They're like, we've been trying to put him away for 16 years. And he's like, 16 years?
Yeah,
that's almost as long as I've been killing people.
Yeah, right. Kersey's like, well, you haven't put me away either, so I guess I can understand. I can understand you not being able to putting O'Shea away after 16 years. But no, O'Shea, yeah, he's got the protection scam down. I mean, yeah, they go after Kersey's girlfriend because even though she gets the mirror treatment in the face, she still is going to testify. But there's of course a mole in the police department. They're not all assholes this time. There's just a specific bad guy, bad cop in this one.
Well, and it's Miguel Sandoval who, in keeping with Soon Tek Ho from the last movie, he's a character that I've seen Miguel Sandoval play kind of villainous heavies in other movies. Like I thought he was great in Get Shorty. I think that's the first movie that I really saw him in. But to see him in this movie, he's a cop and he's nice and he's having dinner with the district attorney and he's great. I think the district attorney is going to be crooked because it's Saul Rubinek, who also plays a lot of like kind of scheming backstabbers in movies. But no, he's the good guy. And Miguel Sandoval is the bad guy. And even when he's having that meeting with O'Shea, which if you haven't figured it out by now, here's the direct proof that he's the mole. Yeah. Even then he's kind of like charming and loose and everything. And it's not until the end of that scene where like, oh, these guys hate each other.
Yeah. Yeah, they hate each other. But they have a mutual interest as well in it. And that's not to say O'Shea doesn't kill people. It's just he doesn't immediately kill people like you might expect for a villain like this in other action films. He, they would prefer to give you evidence of why you need the protection, pay the protection.
Well, it's because, I mean, also, I might have gotten this number wrong, but doesn't he, like, his business with Olivia is one of like 35 operations that he's got going on. So he probably just doesn't kill people like all the time because that's just one more thing to keep track of when you're running an empire. It's like, well, great, now I got to have this body taken care of and remember all these lies.
Yeah, I mean, and because even his thugs, they know better because we get Kersey, who, he goes on his revenge thing and being the smart one this time, he doesn't just flash money and then shoot someone or just walk up to these guys in broad daylight and shoot them. No, he decides to figure out their patterns and where they go first. He actually he's stalking them basically and finding out their patterns. And we see at one point that they shake down a fashion store and they stab the owner in the hand. They don't stab him or kill him completely, just stab him in the hand saying, hey, you better have the money next time. I'm like, I found that, I know we're focusing a little much on it, but I just found it refreshing and interesting, especially considering how the villains in the past have kind of evolved along with Kersey over this franchise. We've gone from slimy, scummy rapist Jeff Goldblum to now guys who would prefer to just hurt you and still get money from you rather than actually kill you, because that's more complicated really than doing the protection scam.
Well, I also want to point out, we're talking about the character Jeff Goldblum played.
Yes.
In Death Wish.
Yes. Yeah, no, I love Jeff Goldblum. Okay.
Yeah.
But in Death Wish 1, he was slimy pervert.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing that I appreciate about these movies, and also that we've had Michael Winner out of the director's chair for the last two pictures, and I
Yes.
think that's really helped. We got a new guy this time, Alan A. Goldstein.
Yeah,
Well,
who they had to get because budget restraints. There was someone else they wanted to get, and they couldn't afford him. So,
but does a good job, and I'm not sure the screenwriting, who's writing these movies, but what I appreciate about it is it's Death Wish 5. Whether or not you have that V, tastefully hidden in a gray behind, Death Wish Face of Death or not, people still know this is like the 90th iteration of this character.
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, they could have him just walking around the streets of New York shooting people, but getting creative with it, turning into a new kind of movie, so that when you look at these as a whole, 1 through 5, you can say, no, there really is a lot to gain from here. The series gets better as it goes on. It doesn't get worse.
No, it gets better. It finds its legs. Even this one, which wasn't a canon film proper, but it was canon film in spirit, because this was one of the first films made after the split of Golan and Globus. And Golan made his 21st Century Films, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called. Yeah. So it was, but it's basically canon, half a cannon. It's like a half a fuse. Only they were in financial dire straits, and he was looking for a win, so he owned the rights for Death Wish, and so that's why they got Bronson back. Bronson didn't want to come back, but thanks to a little book that I was reading, gives a little tidbit about this film, in that they offered Bronson $5 million to come back.
Wow, that's a Death Wish 5 mil.
That's a Death Wish 5 mil. Yes. So Bronson, who didn't want to come back. Yeah. Okay. Which, sadly, it ended up being the final film that was released to theaters where he was the lead. He did a trilogy of thrillers before he passed away because of Alzheimer's. But unfortunately, Death Wish 5 only made 1.7 million back at the box office. So you can imagine. And the reason they filmed in Toronto, why I made the joke, they were going to film in New York, but tax breaks that Canada gives for if most of your crew is from Canada and you film in Canada, you get a shit ton of tax breaks. So that's the only way they could really afford to finish this film, is by shooting the rest in Toronto. So that's why New York looks a lot like Toronto.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, it's just weird that this got a theatrical release, because this whole thing, as much as I really like this movie, it still just screams, I'm at the VHS, I'm at the video store, and hey, this is on the new release wall. Why not?
Yeah, Death Wish 4 was still felt more of a bit of a theatrical type film than this one. This one really felt like it was good. I enjoyed it as well, but it does feel a lot more like that direct to VHS, especially in the mid 90s. So direct to DVD fodder, DVD, the new experience in video. Sorry, I'm having flashbacks to those ads on a DVD. Yes, folks, on the DVD you rented, they have an ad for DVD and how it's the new experience. And I'm like, but I'm watching it on a DVD. I know the experience. Why are you selling me the experience? I already have it. But
just in case you're not paying attention to the experience while it's going on.
That's right. But
before the movie starts.
But yes.
What I love is that we've got two Bugs Bunny characters in this movie. We've got Paul Kersey, who is let me rewind the tape. A couple of years ago, someone sent me a link to a YouTube clip, and I watched it at work, and I quickly had to fast forward through part of it because there's nudity in it. It's the soccer ball scene.
Oh, yes.
And it was just like that one little 30-second clip of him blowing up the guy with the remote control soccer ball. And I thought that was from a Death Wish movie. And so this whole last month we were doing these films, I was waiting for that scene to show up. I'm like, wait, did I miss it? Was that from another Charles Bronson movie? It was in this movie. I was so overjoyed. But it's just such a Bugs Bunny kind of a thing. And the guy he blew up was a hitman named Freddy Flakes, named so because he's got really bad dandruff. I love that. But he's wearing disguises. The first time we see him, he's dressed up as a woman. He's the one who actually bashes Olivia's face into the mirror. but he's showing up looking all these different outfits throughout the picture, and he's kind of
Mhm.
crazy and wily, and I just love him. He played the handicapped like sidekick character in George Romero's Land of the Dead.
Mhm. Yep.
I was trying to figure out where I'd seen this guy before. I'm like, oh, that was him. Yeah.
Which is a fun movie in itself. I appreciate it because it's one of the zombie films I watch that my wife really enjoys, actually.
Mm,
We ended up
zombies,
watching
man, they freak me out.
we ended up watching it, and she's like, "What this?" I'm like, "Land of the Dead." She's like, "Oh," she really got pulled into it. So, but yeah, it's you do still have your humor. The deaths are a bit cartoony in here. The tone is different, just like we mentioned in Death Wish 4. The tone has changed from the gritty crime, darker tone. I mean, there's still dark stuff happening, but it's got just a little bit of lightness to it. Little bit of a tongue in a cheek. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Like this is what the first three were, but we'll give you some of that. But it knows, it feels like it knows what it is. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's almost a bit of like a Freddy Krueger meets Saw in some of this stuff.
mhm.
Like there's the henchman who gets wrapped up in the plastic wrap in the warehouse at the end, because you're watching like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. But then when you're stopping and thinking, that's also horrifying because he's begging for his life, but he's getting the plastic wrapped all around his face. Is he just going to stand there and suffocate? But then no, he gets the air hole, but then he gets hung up on a hook and then shot to death by accident by other hitmen. I'm like, this is wild, man.
I know, right? It really has gone to a different level than you watch the first film. And yeah, it as far as entertainment goes and being comfortable sitting down and watching it, these last two especially have been far more. I mean, three, it kind of started with three, as we mentioned. It just got that batshit crazy third act that just you watch, you're just like, oh, this is just over the top and fun. In three, but three still kind of had a bit of that darker tone with some of the the rapey stuff and the way it handled some of those things. And then four and five, it's just like these are films like this is what you want from action films, and this is kind of more of the trend of what the other action films were, where the gritty crime drama of the 70s kind of faded away to the more, thanks to like the diehards and that, a little bit more of the over the top, a little bit lighter. You still got dark stuff going on, but the tone is definitely different with these last two films. And I will say, I don't know, maybe it's because he kept just thinking of the $5 million paycheck. But let's just say Charles Bronson emotes the most in this film, more than any of the other Death Wish, and I'll dare say almost many of his other films. He is smile. It's
Yes.
weird. He's smiling. He's got facial expressions. He's upset. Well, because up until this point, even in four, he kind of was stone cold, kind of. That's why I chuckle when it's called Face of Death, because I'm like, oh, we get a lot of close-ups of Charles Bronson's face, and up until now, it's been kind of that stone cold. But here, he's smiling, he's emoting, he's got emotion in his face. Even when the cops are giving him some shit, he's like, 16 years? What the fuck? You know, and I love that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that 16 years line. He had the best comeback. He said, "That's a long time to be failing."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, oh damn. Yeah, he's got more quips now. He's more animated. It's like, wow, where was this where was this Kersey for the last four films? Because you feel, and the reason why it's kind of important and why I bring it up, I think, is because you feel Kersey's motivation to actually do what he's doing. In the other four, they were entertaining. Yes, okay, we saw the bad things happen to whoever he gets close to, and we understand that's his motivation. But from the character himself, I never really felt it, because Bronson usually had just one or two looks on his face. I'm in love. Now I'm angry. You know, and you look at it, you go, wait, is there different? I think your eye twitched there. You know, and it's just the way he was approaching it. And in here, you feel his emotions and you see his emotions. You see how it's actually impacting him. So you understand his motivations, I think, a lot more in this one than in previous ones through his performance.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that Bronson just has one of the great all-time interesting faces to look at.
Well,
So
yeah.
I think I
Yeah,
was
there's
reading
that.
I think I was reading more nuance and emotion into his other,
Mm,
roles in this series than you were.
yeah.
But I agree, it's not the most dynamic character, but it is really fun to watch. Also, I love that this movie has a wicked sense of humor
Mhm.
too, beyond Bronson's one-liners and blowing. Are remote soccer balls a thing? Remote control soccer balls? Because
There
I'd
were
never seen
multiple
this before.
there were multiple of them in the stand of the toys that he was looking at, so, they may have, been a thing at,
Did they
one
discontinue
time.
him after this movie because they didn't want people turning him into bombs?
No, it is a thing. There are remote soccer balls. Apparently, a remote control soccer ball. Sears sells them. You
Wait,
could
is
buy.
Sears still around?
Yeah, you could. Sears is still around, surprisingly. Yes, and there's Sphero mini soccer app enabled program robot ball. I mean, of course, you use an app and shit now because we're in the 21st century. But yeah, because I think what they were intended for is for practicing. You could have someone control the soccer ball and you could practice trying to kick it or whatnot as it moves around. I think that was kind of the purpose
Oh,
of
I thought it
them.
was so, like, when you kick it, you could have it come back to you instead of having to, like,
It
run across the
it could be
field to.
that too. It could be that too. When you practice, you could use the remote to bring it back to you too. But it is a thing. It's a real thing. It wasn't just made up in here. Uh, and even yeah, that's where you're talking about, like with the tone, and where I was talking about more emotion from Kersey. He's snickering a bit. He's smiling as he's leading Flaky around his house with this remote control soccer ball. You see Kersey actually smiling a bit, like, "Well, I got you, you idiot," you know?
Well, even
Oh.
better is he's smiling after the guy has been blown up and set on fire, and he's watching him sitting there burn, like, down on his knees, like, screaming. He's kinda like,
Yeah, and the guy, Flaky's naked girlfriend comes out, and she's screaming, and he's just like, "Yeah, I probably should go now," but he's still smiling, but he's just like,
Yeah, he just
"Ah."
kinda, like, does that thing where he kinda backs away
Yeah.
out of the frame with his remote control. But I love, and this is, I think, why half that meme that people sent me was successful, because his line, he calls out, he says, "Freddy, I'm here to help you with your dandruff problem." And then he blows them up like, "Your dandruff,
Yeah.
Charlie."
Your dandruff problem. That's not. No, Charlie. No, go talk to Sly Stallone while he's practicing his "I am the law" line. Okay, I am the law. I am the law. I am the law. Where do I put the emphasis? I am the law. You know, dandruff. No, no, Charles. It's dandruff. Just one word.
Who's
It's
dandruff? I thought his
no,
name was Freddy.
no. Oh my. You know what? We're running out of nighttime here. Go ahead. Let's just roll with it. Go ahead, Charlie. Whenever you're ready. Uh, I'm here to help you with your dandruff problem. Okay, cut. We're good. Let's go.
That was beautiful.
That was beautiful.
That's why you pay you the big bucks, Charlie. But no, the wicked sense of humor.
Mhm.
When Chicky, who was he was the first hitman with the rage problem, because
Yeah.
when he's going all over, he's like, "Roar!" He gets killed with a cyanide laced cannoli in the restaurant. Yeah, I was. This is the second movie in a row where we've had a great restaurant death scene. But after he is killed, the newspaper headline, it was like a fake New York newspaper, like the New
Yeah.
York Gazette or something,
Yeah.
but I swear there's like a New York Post style headline. I wrote it down, the full thing. It said, "Mobster bites it. Chicky Piccone killed by cannoli."
I know. And they
God.
do that the second time too when he offs the second guy with the exploding soccer ball. I think there's another headline too that's just playful like that. You're just like, So yeah, the film definitely has some humor worked into this, which was appreciated. And they do some interesting things with Michael Parks' character too, because he's got this his girlfriend, his latest girlfriend, that he must have picked up after, after the fashion, whatever happened between him and Kersey's girlfriend. He's got this other girlfriend who seems very devoted to him, and she's dressed up or whatnot. This is after he's got the daughter, and she's waiting outside. Thankfully, she's not in the same room. Anyway, he's O'Shea's being scummy gangster guy, and he says, "Okay, come over here. It's showtime," And she goes over to him, and she sits there kind of between his legs, and then we cut out to the girl who can hear everything, and you're just like, oh my god, this is awkward. But then you hear the line to where, oh, it's not happening again.
Yeah.
And he throws her out. And why that stuck with me was because I'm like, just by putting that little VO, because we don't even see it, it's through the door, the girl is hearing it. But putting that, it suddenly puts into context a lot of things about O'Shea. And there's other bits in here too, where they add a line or something just enough within the context that you learn more about the character without them feeding you a lot about the character. And I like that, because when you hear that, you're like, well, that explains a lot with O'Shea. He's overcompensating for a few things, I think.
Well, I totally agree. My one question is, if you've got this problem, why do you call your girlfriend over to the couch?
Because this time might be different.
Yeah, but you gotta wait till you feel the blood flowing. I'm not gonna get into a biology lesson, but when you're ready to go, and when you're not.
Welcome to the Spoiler Room biology lesson, everyone. 101. And we just get our new viewer now as we're talking about the blood flow and Michael Parks' crotch. But anyway, welcome.
And farewell. No. But no, I agree. And that's the thing about Michael Parks. It's not so much what's on the page, because what's on the page is all right, but it's what's in his face. I could watch an entire origin movie about what was going on for that 16 years that he was kind of coming up through the Irish mob, or just the New York mob circles.
It was the Irish mob. Apparently he had risen through the Irish mob.
Because he's a maniac, but he also has that kind of quiet, like he's thinking about stuff and rolling a toothpick around in his mouth. He's like, I want to know what's going on behind those eyes. It's beautiful. At one point, he's in his high rise with his flunkies and his girlfriend, and he's like, yeah, bring me a snack. And she brings out a plate of cannolis.
I know, right? And he throws them at her. He's like, what's wrong with you? What the hell?
And she runs upstairs like crying and stuff, because it's one of those ambiguous things where I don't know if he was paranoid that those were poisoned too, or if he was just like, you're an idiot, because one of my friends or henchmen just died of poisoned cannolis.
Well, his henchman died, and it was a brother. So you have the brother in the room with the cannolis. So there's the connection. And just to pause, Stuffed Burrito Entertainment's with us, and he says, yay, crotch powers. Crotch powers indeed, my friend. So glad you could stop by. Yeah, well, and then there's humor. There's humor worked in through a lot. Again, this is why I'm with you that this series has actually surprisingly gotten better over time, over the course of these sequels, because we get kind of a humorous thing to where after the death of the cannoli guy, you get O'Shea and his girl and everybody at the funeral with just one card, right?
That was like something out of like Boondock Saints, or a Guy Ritchie movie, where the runner kid comes, like they're giving the funeral service. This runner kid comes up down the aisle, bursting through the doors to deliver a message or something, and then everybody in the church, except for the priest who's at the front, pulls out their guns, and it's this beautiful shot. Everyone going,
well, yeah, because that was the second funeral. Because the first funeral was just him leaving, and the guy was like, the priest was like, why are you leaving? And O'Shea just gets the hell out of there.
Right, okay.
Remember? But the second one, where they had twice as many cars too, that was kind of the humor. There was just one line of cars for the first funeral, and then the second funeral you had twice as many cars. And then when the kid comes in, all the guns in a wonderful wide shot of straight down the aisle of everybody pointing their guns at the kid, and it was beautiful and it was humorous. It's almost directed a bit. It is directed a bit comedic of how, oh, we're at another funeral. Oh, we're at, and it's just like, it's weird to find in this Death Wish film this bit of humor that is, and it's peppered throughout a bit too. I mean, there's,
Well, there's also a nice little pin on that particular scene because with the priest, it's almost like filling in backstory because he's not horrified by what he's seeing with the guns coming out. It's almost like he was the priest for all of these hitmen when they were little kids. So he
Yeah.
knew that they were like little bastards growing up. He's like, this is, come on, guys, this is a house of God. Please just no guns at the funeral. It's almost like under his breath, kind of disappointed, like, why did I have to get stuck at this parish?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, it is another a bit of humor, and I loved how it was directed and it was handled. But that shows you where they've brought this series from to where it is now, a mid-90s film where they realize they can work some of this into it and still have seriousness. I mean, we talked about it with some of the previous films between, the mid 80s and the mid 90s. You had action films that both could work in serious moments and comedic moments, thanks to things like, the Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, the buddy cop films, which actually had some serious stuff in it, like from the gritty crime stuff that Death Wish spawned from. But then they also work in the humor stuff, the one-liners, the interesting ways guys get off. Yeah,
Well, I just love the look, the different looks of this series, because as you mentioned, this is 94, so it's like 6 or 7 years after the previous one, which was 87. And the one before that was 85, so they're kind of in the same vein. But going from 85, which is like this gritty, New York slum kind of a movie, to 87, which is back in LA, I think.
Yeah.
So it's very flashy, but the climax in the roller rink, there's a lot of neon, a lot of smoke. It still feels very like late 80s. When you jump into part 5, there's no denying that this thing is in the 90s, from the score to that kind of, almost soap opera lighting to a lot of things. Not soap opera, but it just looks, there's more polish to it. It looks like a video rental movie from the early to mid 90s. Right. It just has that feel. So you can watch these things, and even if you're tired of seeing this guy get revenge for stuff, you can just watch these as films and not have the same experience between 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They all have a distinct look.
And the way they're set up, it's a bit of a rinse, wash, repeat with his motivations. In all honesty, you don't have to watch these in order. There is no real continuity. I mean, we did have the recurring characters between 1 and 2, but even still, you can follow these films on their own. You don't necessarily have to watch the previous films to get the gist of what's going on, because it's a pretty basic motivation, and still follow what's going on and not have to watch the other sequels in order to figure out, what's going on.
You don't have to, but I think there is a real, if you're going to watch these as, one long story and actually appreciate them, you're like, I'm going to watch the Death Wish movies. It's, and we talked about this before, the evolution of Paul Kersey.
Right.
Because as his methods got more extreme, like the guns got bigger, throughout the movies, to the point where in the last one, he had this giant vault hidden behind his refrigerator that he went into to get the fucking rocket launcher. In this movie, he's got like a little gun safe behind a picture in his office. And, it's kind of that annoying thing where he keeps having these flashbacks of like the voiceover to things that we just watched 5 minutes ago. God. Right. Yeah. It's like the Rocky IV of the Death Wish movies. But you think about, he's not the Arsenal guy anymore. He really has tried to give this up, and he keeps, it's like the Michael Corleone thing. He keeps getting pulled back in, but you get the sense that he sold or got rid of a lot of his arsenal because he's having to go to the store and buy a remote control bomb like soccer ball. He's got the one big gun in his case, but he doesn't have the heavy artillery. So he's kind of having to Batman Begins his career.
Yeah, we don't have any who is it? Wheatley or whatever it is. The
Wheelie,
big
wasn't that one
gun.
of the Transformers? No.
No, that was Wheelie. The big gun from 3. We didn't have
Mm,
his buddy, this time. Yeah, he just had the little handgun, and then yeah, he got creative. Well, he was in witness protection too. I imagine they probably took all his guns when he went into witness protection, so
that's true.
he didn't have like a chance to get his full arsenal. um you know but that's okay because it works with his character, and he's gotten more creative because again, he's been at this for 20 years. And I guess I do see your point. If you do watch them in order, you can see the evolution of Kersey, and see his approach and his changes, and how he's kind of learned that no, you can't just walk up to a bad guy in broad daylight in front of a bunch of people and off him with your 33. You can't do that, unless
What
you're in the hood and surrounded by a bunch of gang members. Then you can shoot whoever you want. But
he witnesses a lot of murders in broad daylight. Speaking of which, early on in the film, that fat guy that I mentioned was the dude who
yeah,
got kind of like part of him shaved off. When he gets killed because he decides to wear a wire, but the hitmen are onto him, and he gets really frustrated and kind of storms away from the scene back through a series of alleys. It was kind of confusing to me. I'm like, if you knew where the undercover cop was generally, walk in that direction. Don't go in the back
yeah,
alleys, right? But he gets frustrated. He's tearing off the wire, and but then he gets run over by a car in one of the most spectacular deaths I have ever seen. He gets hit by a car, launched backwards into the air on what had to have been wires, flies through this giant plate glass window into a table where people are having lunch. I mean, it looks like something Frank Miller would have drawn in like Sin City.
he lands on people too. I mean, this isn't just these people get out of the way. No, this big guy, the big stunt man, whoever they got, goes through the plate glass and lands on people. It's like, holy crap. And then there's another impressive stunt. That's one of 2 impressive stunts in the same sequence, because when you have that, you have the cop who was the undercover cop listening to the wire. She goes running down the alley and trying to track down where he is. So she's standing in the middle of the street trying to take out Flaky Frank, who, instead of hitting her straight on, he does a side swipe with the car. And this is on camera, folks. Whoever they got the stunt person for this was pretty damn good, because he hits her with the side of the car. The cop, she rolls on top, flies in the air, and I mean, and it's all in camera, it's all in frame. It's like, holy ball, I didn't expect that for a film like this, made by the company it was made. I'm like, that's an impressive stunt versus the shitty dummies we got tossed off of buildings.
Right. And even when Olivia takes her swan dive off the building towards the end, that didn't look like a dummy to me.
No, it
There was
wasn't.
some movement going on. There was
It
some
was
flailing as the body went down.
It was her. It was her, because I mean, we cut away before she lands, obviously, but it was actually a stunt person, not necessarily the actress, who jumps off. Just like when Kersey actually jumps off, or the stuntman double who's being Kersey. In any case, you actually have a real person jumping off the edge of the building who lands into the pile of garbage. But still, it was not of the person starts running towards the edge, and then we cut away to the upshot and we see the shitty dummy. Yay! No, it was an actual person jumping. Now, it wasn't like 3 feet, but still, the stunt stuff that they do in here, you have less shitty dummies in this, except for exploding soccer man with a really bad shitty dummy.
Yeah, but I was still so doubled over from Dan Druff that I think I missed the shitty dummy, honestly.
It's shitty dummy, but then it's a real stuntman in the fire retardant type gel or whatever, because then there's a guy actually on fire moving around. It's like, holy balls, though. I mean,
I also love that Freddy Flakes jumps out of the bathtub, and like within a couple of minutes we see him back outside. So I get it, he's thrown some clothes on, but his hair is just about perfectly dry.
Well, yeah. I
She
mean,
had
he's
been like shampooing it with this like special like
Mhm.
dandruff scalp
And he didn't
rub or
wash
something.
he didn't rinse it, no, I mean, he's fast.
I
That's
wonder, is that why his hair caught on, like his head went up so
that's why it's
spectacularly?
it was the soap, it was the he hadn't rinsed all of the soap out, it was actually fairly flammable soap, shampoo. Um,
Oh
yeah,
man.
I mean, you know, and we still it ends weird, though. This film, I don't know, it was a little weird of an ending for it. We don't get the "I'll give you 3 minutes" or whatnot, because the one cop who's been trying to bust O'Shea for 16 years finally shows up at the, the fashion, shop where the showdown is going on, which I gotta back up. Okay, I wanna know where they got the one guy. I think he's done a lot of voice acting before, but the one of the thugs that was with O'Shea in the
Oh
dude
yeah.
had the lowest voice. I'm not kidding, folks.
We're
I don't
gonna
even
get this guy.
I'm like, "We're gonna get him." I'm like, "Holy crap!" And he's like, "Kersey's coming around the corner. We're gonna get him." I'm like, "What the and that I think that was the guy's actual I'm just like, "Where'd they find this guy? Oh my god."
Yeah, I mean that's the one kind of mistake that I think, like, first he's introduced like in the last 10 minutes as a replacement hitman,
Right.
but you already had the guy Chicky or whatever, who
Yeah.
was the unhinged like crazy big dude. Like, I think any movie with henchmen needs to have one of those kind, unless they happen to be twins or something.
Well, that's the one thing is in the ending, it kind of I mean, the Saran wrap guy I thought was cool. I'm like, that's kind of cool, and the fact that later on he gets shot by his own guys. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fun, nice bringing it around. But yeah, O'Shea like dug into the new Looney Tune henchman bin and grabs like three more of these guys who we haven't seen up until now, and they each have their own character. You can tell the way they're acting and the guns that they have and whatnot. They don't last long. Um, it's just an interesting approach because I think four really had a strong ending. I really enjoyed the final showdown with Kersey and the bad guy, even with him not being able to see him in a perfectly clear roller rink. Outside of that scene, I really, yeah, I really enjoyed the way it came out. Here, I did, but I didn't. It felt like it lost a step or two with this showdown, because of the plot armor Paul Kersey has in this film. This man, he doesn't have his bulletproof vest like he had in 3 and even in 4, but these are the worst, and I do mean the worst henchmen shots. These make stormtroopers look accurate. They
Well,
shoot a lot of furniture, and they shoot a lot of knickknacks on the shelves, and they shoot a lot of boxes. But Kersey, come on, in the house when they first go there to off his girlfriend,
mhm.
he should have been hit by at least a stray bullet. Give me some kind of bloodshed from Kersey, which usually happens in the previous one where they show he's at least a little remind you he's not completely invulnerable, folks, but not in this one. He's like, yeah, he's not touched by a single bullet.
That didn't bother me so much because I've been learning a lot about guns lately, because it's just, kind of come into my psyche, my
Uh-huh.
conscience, conscious. Uh, and it's not like it is in the movie, especially when you're firing those big guns. You think, oh, you
Yeah,
got
I
this
know.
spray, you can hit like anything. No, you can just as often not you shoot all around your target, right? And so these guys, they're in a dark, like kind of a dark house. They're shooting stuff up. I was more impressed with Kersey being a 70-plus-year-old man with those running skills, like
Yeah.
the running and the diving and the climbing and everything. That bothered me more than the bullets. Yeah, and then at the end with the fashion warehouse, that was really dark. So I'm not surprised that he got away unscathed. Yeah, my big problem with the way this movie ended was I think they got the two big spectacular deaths in the wrong order.
Hmm,
Because there's the one, I think it was Frankie was the brother who got fed through
right.
the conveyor belt machine.
Oh yeah, with the chopped up. He got chopped up into the fabric chopper.
Yeah, that was great. It was gruesome because he gets shot right, and he flies back through one of those flappy doors, and then you realize, oh, he's landing on a conveyor belt. That conveyor belt is going through this machine with these kind of like rotating jaws, and he just gets fed into it. We don't actually see that because I think that would be a bit more budget, but we do see the meat kind of like going through the thing, and then the
Into a
giant
bag. Yeah.
bag like filling up with blood and pulp. Beautiful stuff. And then O'Shea gets it with the
Acid bath. Yeah.
the acid bath. But yeah, Kersey's like, you need a bath. And then he flies back. I think that that Freddy, the henchman, should have gotten the acid bath. And then
And
O'Shea,
O'Shea,
if
yeah.
anybody deserves to get ground up into a meat grinder, it's that guy. And I want to hear him scream and be like, you can't do this to me.
Yeah, he's got to go feet first. So instead of
Yeah.
head first, yeah, O'Shea had to go feet first through the grinder. No, you're right. It should have been the other way around. You know, you need a bath. I'm like, really, really? Come on, man. You know, yeah, it should have though. I mean, you do get melting shitty dummy, so you do get one shitty dummy in her, folks. In the form of the melting O'Shea in the acid bath, which was just probably milk or something. But
Well, that's the other thing. Like, it's another one of those open acid pits that, I mean, I know there was like a room you had to enter to get into it, but there's no like railing or signs or anything. It's just like there's a giant hole in the floor with bubbling acid that if you get near it will destroy you.
oh come on, it was the mid-90s. They didn't have full safety inspection things yet. Come on
That's
now.
Yeah, it's true. It was New York in the garment district or whatever. It's they didn't care.
It was a sweatshop anyway, so I mean, and they were using it to launder money. I think O'Shea had some like nefarious dealings, and so they were running the money through the fashion area. That's why.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. How many bones do you think are the bottom of that acid pit, man?
I don't know. It's probably quite a bit. Quite a bit. Yeah, and then Kersey goes up to the lieutenant, and the lieutenant goes, "Oh, I'll be fine. I'll take cover it. I'll cover it for you." And Kersey's like, "Okay." And then he like walks off, and then we get the him walking off, and then freeze frame credits. But the way the way Bronson takes off, he's like, "Check cleared. I'm gone."
Well, he says, if you need any help, give me a call,
Yeah,
kind of leaving it open for another one. But I'm like, okay, so at least he's not miserable at the end of this because, yeah, his girlfriend's dead, but you get the feeling that he's smiling his way through killing all these henchmen. He's probably fine. He's like, I've been through this before.
Yeah.
But, he seemed to have a nice rapport with Chelsea, the daughter.
Yeah.
So the loner ending doesn't quite make sense here. You'd expect him to go like drive by and pick her up from wherever she is, something like that. Go get ice cream. I don't know, but it's just kind of an odd place, and especially because we know this is the last death wish, but it doesn't feel like it was meant to be necessarily.
Well, no, they in true Golan fashion, they were selling the idea of doing a 6, but unfortunately, the health of Bronson and the fact that it didn't last long before Golan's company went belly up. They were in financial dire straits. They could not make a Death Wish 6, especially after they lost money on this one. But there was supposedly going to be a Death Wish 6. And then
was there any info on like what that would have been? Like, what's the twist? Death Wish in space?
Because eventually everything gets to space. Oh, you killed my space monkey. Anyway, no, that'd be John Wick. That's John Wick 8. That's right. They killed the space monkey.
John Wick ape.
That ape. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're right. The loner part doesn't work at the end because this is, I think, the first Death Wish where he has someone he cares about still alive.
Yeah, who wants to talk to him? Because remember, his fiance walked out on him. Yeah,
who still wants to be with him? Now in true Death Wish fashion. All Kersey had to do was not propose to his fashion designer girlfriend. She would have survived, but he proposed to her, and that was it. It's like, Kersey's got to put that on his Tinder profile that not looking for a long-term relationship, they end badly. And then they'll say, well, what do you mean they end badly? Do you have a bad breakup? No, they die horribly, often.
So it would read, long-term relationship wanted, no commitments.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the Kersey, Tinder Kersey profile. So yeah, that was the only thing with this one, is that this was the first, I think this is the first Death Wish where he had someone he cared about who still wanted to be with him or who was still alive. So him just heading off, and especially volunteering, hey, if you need my help, just give me a call. I'm like, he's taken such the Batman angle. Kersey is like Batman with no cowl. Okay, he's really developed into Batman with no cowl to the point of, he gave us this signal. Well, he didn't give him a Death Wish signal, but
it would be a giant soccer ball in the sky.
No, that's how they signal him. They send a soccer ball to. They put a soccer ball on his doorstep, and he's like, "Oh, they need me again. Time to kill some more some more criminals." So yeah. So we'll wrap it up here. We have covered the entire franchise of Death Wish, something I didn't think I'd hear myself say, but we have, and it has. I'm with you. It's gotten better, which is weird.
What sucks is, like, okay, it was nice that this was on Amazon Prime, so I didn't have to pay to see it. But we talked about this early on. I bought the Blu-rays of Death Wish and then Death Wish 2 through 4, but part 5 wasn't included in that, probably because it was a different company that owned the rights by then. But I'm like, now I kind of have to go and buy the Death Wish 5 Blu-ray because I want to own all these things. And I never thought I'd say that either.
I know, right? This is one of those films series similar to another film series I won't mention because it's a guilty pleasure of mine, but it just involves a lot of fast cars being very angry.
You're gonna go see the Jurassic World F9 or Fast and the Furious crossover, aren't you? Yeah.
I'd be first in line for that shit. Seeing dinosaurs and the Fast and Furious gang going at. Are you kidding? Oh my god!
What they're gonna do? They're gonna start at the head of the T-Rex in their car. They're gonna drive down its tail and get to 88 miles per hour, and then they're gonna go forward in time to get back to the present.
There you go. That's right. That's how they have to do that, because they need the gas inside the gastric system of the T-Rex in order to ignite to get the 1.21 gigawatts of power needed to launch the DeLorean back into, well, in this case it'd be a Charger, back into the present time. Yeah, I don't care,
You're gonna have the scene with Vin Diesel talking to Christopher Lloyd. He's like, Doc, what's the problem? Do we become assholes or something?
What?
It's a Cadillac. Something's got to be done about your Cadillac. Yeah.
Bro, it's your Charger. It's the alternator. They don't make them in the future.
Yeah. Fast to the future. Fast to the Jurassic Future World Park. I don't know.
Back to the Furious.
Back to the Furious. That's good too.
There you go.
Now I'm just imagining this.
Copyright spoiler room. So we'll wrap it up here tonight. Death Wish. Yes, it is one that I think you and I are both surprised that I've enjoyed the later ones more so than the earlier ones. And I fully admit, and here I've got a credit card somewhere. You can have it because I know, being part of Rotten Tomatoes and all that. But just kidding. But I do enjoy the Fast and Furious film. That's another one where I enjoyed them because they embraced a lot of the stuff that people actually enjoy, and they tailored it more to what, from what it tried to be at the beginning, a statement like this one. It tried to be a statement on vigilantism and crime and that for a different time, and it's evolved now into where Kersey is is basically an action hero. Just like our Lethal Weapons and like our diehards. It's because he's evolved into kind of that by now in '94, and that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. And he's a low key action hero.
Right.
He knows how to jump out of the way of machine gun bullets like nobody's business.
He
But
does.
he's just still like driving around, walking around. He doesn't have a partner that he's quipping with. Really, he's just kind of this old man. He's the elder statement of vigilantism.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he is the elder statement of that. And yeah, it's one of those folks. You watch them in order, but you don't necessarily have to. But they do get better in tone. They get less of the uncomfortable bits,
Yeah.
and it embraces more of what you want out of a film series like this. In all honesty, it becomes just like, I know I mentioned it, Fast and the Furious. I fully admit it; they're dumb movies, but they embraced the elements that people actually enjoyed out of the first three films. And when you look at Fast and the Furious 4 on, they just embraced those elements and amped them up, and it pulled people in the theater because the people realized they didn't want Vin Diesel going all serious. It's all about family. I love my family. Nobody gives a fuck about your family. We want to watch big muscle cars driving through a building, multiple buildings, and then parachuting out of them on some wild stunt, landing on a tank, and grabbing the tank, and then the tank transforms into a plane. That's the shit we want to see. And they've delivered that with the Fast and Furious. In Death Wish series, we want to see what Kersey's doing in 4 and 5. This is the stuff that you want to see, the smarter vigilante, the guy who just isn't going, look, I've got money, bang, bang. No, he's actually putting some thought into the fact that there's consequences to his actions, and he wants to reduce that as much as possible. And that's what we got in 4 and 5, especially with this. So
yeah.
What's your real final thoughts with this whole?
I mean, I think you summed it up well. I am as surprised as anybody that I'm not bored talking about Death Wish, that we've spent 5 hours now dissecting and giving like an actual analysis to the Death Wish movies. And the bigger surprise is there's something there to analyze. I think I have more respect for Charles Bronson than I ever had before, because I never really got it. I didn't watch his movies, but now I kind of want to watch other Bronson movies. I know, like, he's been in a bunch of like ensemble movies, and also he had some singulars through his career. But yeah, Death Wish 5, who knew?
Most of his singular where he was the lead was through canon. I mean, people wonder, and we've mentioned this before, some people out there maybe wonder, why does everybody get crazy about canon or whatnot? First off, if you grew up in the 80s to early 90s, it was everywhere. They made so many movies, but they also were one of those houses that gave people a chance where other Hollywood studios weren't giving a chance. Your Chuck Norris, your Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson probably wouldn't be talked about as nearly as much and considered where he is, I think, today, even still in discussion, if it wasn't for canon. Canon gave him the opportunity to be a lead, and a lead in bigger films, especially for canon at the time. As we mentioned in this series with Death Wish, some of them were their biggest blockbusters, quote unquote, their biggest money makers. And they had Bronson at the lead, and it got him his name. He got him into pop culture, much like Chuck Norris, and it was because canon took a chance, because they were just looking to make films and like, hey, you're a name, you've been in a number of things, want to be in our film? And sure, you're gonna give me $1 million? Yeah, here, fine, fuck it. And so that's why I have appreciation for canon, even its ups and downs, and why we're talking about Bronson is because otherwise he would have been that guy who was in some westerns and some, he was the sidekick in some westerns and some spaghetti westerns and some, some maybe minor roles in TV in that,
Yeah.
So, but that's why I enjoy talking about these films, and especially looking at the canon film library closely, because you get a lot of these names that you're just like, holy crap, this person was in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Yes, it is I Need a Hero month. So we have some interesting films lined up.
Oh yeah.
Ian's got that look on his face, including Buckaroo Banzai and Adventures in the Eighth Dimension. We've got Remo Williams on deck and Howard the Duck. What? Yes, a Marvel movie. Howard the Duck. Yes, it's a Marvel movie. You can't deny it, MCU fans. I'm sorry, it exists. So we are going to take a look at those movies this month. So stay tuned for that. The AMA is going to be July 9th, 7 o'clock. Hope you see you guys there. And now this is my chance for my guest to shill away. So License to Shill, Ian, please tell folks where they can find all of your wonderful content.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. You can find me at Kicking the Seat, which is at kickseat.com. I'm also on Twitter at Kickseat. I also have the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel where I put out movie review videos, discussions similar to this, and quick interviews and that kind of stuff. So yeah, check me out there. Like, subscribe if you do like it and want to subscribe. And I'm also the Kicking the Seat podcast, which is a lot of it now is the YouTube stuff, but in audio form, you can find that on a bunch of the major platforms. So yeah, check it out. And I'm also here every Tuesday talking with Mark about these wonderful movies. I'm excited about Remo Williams because I've never seen that movie.
Oh,
I know it's got a kind of a cult following, so I'm very excited. I like Fred Ward a lot.
It'll be interesting to see your 2021 lens through that film.
If I can make it through Death Wish parts 1 through 5, I can handle anything.
We'll just see. Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for listening. Stuffed Burrito Entertainment. Check out his stuff as well. He's a Twitch streamer. He's a YouTube reviewer. He does all kinds of things. His link is on our Friends of Special Mark Productions on our website there. Go check that out and check his stuff out. Thank you for popping in tonight, Stuffed Burrito. And now, yes, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Woo. And